guys. Okay, so one of the things that you have to be prepared for as a freelancer, as a service provider, as an agency owner online is simply that there's going to be times when clients do not pay you and things are going not well, in the sense that, you know, all of a sudden they forgot to pay their invoice, or their card gets declined, or they're changing directions and they're not mentioning it to you. And then all of a sudden you have to pay your contractor, and you cannot pay your contractor because that client didn't pay you, which you were expecting to pay them. So one of the first things that I would say is that based on your client roster, so these are all of the clients that you have currently contracts with, that you're working with, right? One of the important things that I would add is that you should expect 65% of that revenue to be essentially repeated in the next month. I would not ever look at your client roster and say you have a contract of 3 months. And then within those 3 months, you're thinking, oh, every client is going to pay you every time. This is the money that I'm making. Wow, I can go out, I can buy this new software that I really have been meaning to buy. That's gonna help me in my social media marketing and blah, blah, blah. You don't want to do this. I think the most important thing is that you really want to run a lean business. And meaning is that you set the expectations realistically and even lower than realistically. So if I sort of have my client roster and I look at it, I will for sure think that 65% of that revenue is going to be repeated, right? It's going to repeat itself. I will not assume 100%. If 100% of the revenue is going to repeat itself, awesome. Okay, this is better. This is like better or best goal, right? But most of the time, usually, especially when you're working with 15 clients or whatever, it's almost guaranteed that there 20% of maybe from those clients, there's going to be some challenges you're going to go through and you're going to have to solve. And so one of the challenges, obviously, and that's a big one, is that the clients don't pay you. So here's some things, and I made a list of that on my phone just the other day when I thought about it. And here's a list essentially, which I wish someone would have told me at the beginning. I wish I could have put certain systems or just thought processes in place to really deal with this and deal with it better, so my business also grows faster. So number one is always get the payment in advance, right? Don't deliver the service and then say, okay, I deliver the service first to you, even half of the service, and then you pay me half, and then after 30 days I deliver the rest and you pay me the rest of the money. I wouldn't do that, right? Obviously there's time involved from you, from maybe your contractors. So I think the most important thing is to always get paid in advance, even, you know, if it's a small payment, even if it's like 50 francs, euros, dollars, whatever. I think that's very important. If someone cannot pay you in advance that money, then obviously that's a red flag too, and you probably don't want to work with that client. So number two, include in your contract a charge for reminder fees. And I have that a lot also, especially when it comes to our funnel marketing setups. And once think about it, we have the whole sales funnel setup going, and then we're starting with paid ads. And if you have any experience so far with paid ads, you're starting with those, you're running the campaigns, and things are picking up, and you're adjusting that, you're seeing sort of your golden campaigns, and you're kind of scaling them up, you're increasing it by adding more ad money to it, and then all of a sudden the client stops paying you. And that's very frustrating, to say the least, because you put all this work in, right? And all of a sudden you really see the traction and it keeps going up, and then they stop paying you because for whatever reason you don't know, right? For whatever reason, they stop paying you. They don't understand sometimes maybe the importance. And then what you don't have to do is, right, you cannot keep working. No matter how great it is, no matter like sort of like the results you've already achieved, you have to kind of also stop working and doing the work and pause the ads. For instance, if I give you the example of like running paid ads for them, if it's social media publishing, if you schedule ahead social media posts for them, if you're a social media manager, you have to stop those, because until the client pays you and then you start it again, right? It's a value exchange. If they are not holding up their end of the deal, then you are sticking to your word, and you obviously, there's a contract in place, so both parties know what they can expect. And if they're not sticking to their word, then you have to like essentially stop it as well, and you have to stick to your words. So, and the next thing is that if they're not paying you, then after 3 days, then you're adding on $50, euros, francs, or whatever it is. And you kind of keep going with that, right? So if they're paying 7 days late, then you're adding a late fee to that, right? Or a reminder fee, or whatever you want to call it. And that's usually also the case if you think about it with other businesses, right? And that's just for you to kind of also reimburse you for the damages that have been done also for your work, right? Because your time is also precious, and you want to kind of communicate that also to your client so that they really understand that. Now, let me check the next point. You also want to make sure that the contracts, when you have them, that they are properly signed by both parties, right? Really make sure that you have both signatures. You have yours and you have their signature, right? And not just usually you have, you know, the name or the business or the brand of the client on the bottom and then the date, right? You want to make sure to actually have the signature so it's a viable contract. Yeah, because if it's not a viable contract and you don't have literally their signature, then you cannot hold them to it a lot of the times. Like say when it really comes down to it, say it's a bigger contract, it's a 5,000 franc project or $5,000 project, and you want to hold them accountable to what happened and you want to sort of enforce the claim, you can enforce the claim if you don't have a proper contract. Okay, and then yeah, prompt invoicing is very important. Have a good invoicing tool that's really working for you, where things are also automated, and you can of course also invoice per milestones. I mentioned it before, but like when you're doing funnel projects like I've been doing for the past 8 years, I usually invoice them for, obviously there's some research work at the beginning, then that's a sub project, then the next project is to build up the whole sales funnel system and kind of implement that with the copywriting, with the landing page and all this kind of stuff and the design. And then the next project would be the traffic portion of things, right? The ads, the social media, the organic marketing, that kind of stuff. So there's 3 sub projects or milestones within the overall project that we're selling. And so that's really important too, because usually as service providers, it's a nice way to kind of maybe digest it, and that has nothing to do with this negotiation of, oh, I pay you half if you show me half of your work kind of deal. No, it's just really setting realistic expectations, making it milestones, because I think it helps the work move forward really nicely, because they are really set milestones, and like you have to identify those if you want to, if there are any in your service-based business. And then I would say if someone doesn't pay you, and if they are completely blindsiding you and not responding anymore, you write them one Mahnung, or you write them a reminder of a warning. And if they don't pay you again, I would just go ahead and really close everything down. So be really strict in how you deal with it and don't feel bad about it, right? Because you're obviously a business and you have to run as one. And for instance, if you are in Switzerland as well, right, you can write one Mahnung and then you can sort of tell them, oh, you're doing a Betreibung right away. In your country, there might be like some consequence as well that you can enforce in order to have them really understand the severity of adhering to a contract, right, that they agreed to begin with. So that's like one thing, is just kind of be strict about it and follow through with the warnings, and don't kind of feel icky about it or anything like that, because it's not, right? You agree to a contract, you make sure you put everything in the contract to begin with, you make sure to communicate certain things also during the sales process, during the onboarding process, and if that person chooses not to kind of honor those, then you have to make sure to kind of stick to your boundaries and also kind of further communicate them. Yeah, there's another thing. You can, of course, sometimes when you have like a debt, and one of my lawyer contacts, they gave me that kind of tip, when you have a bigger debt, right? So if it's like a really bigger contract, like 10, 15,000 grand or like francs, then you can also sell the debt to debt collectors, like the incasso, and you get less than the amount, but at least you get something. And that also depends on your industry, depends on like your service and stuff like that. And this is a cool way to just like, if you're in that kind of situation, to Google it, or to, of course, I would definitely recommend it to invest in. Then if it's that big of a contract and you're losing out on that much money, definitely invest in a lawyer. Pay the $200 or 200 francs for like an hour of consultation and know what your rights are. For me too, of course, I have like a legal insurance. I think that's something like, it's like also maybe $200-300 a year. I think that's very important, especially if you are a freelancer, if you're a solopreneur, and you think it's not important, but I think it's really important, and it also covers you. And I think most people forget that. Be pessimistic, realist in a sense sometimes in some aspect of your business. I always think it's like a balance. You have to be an optimistic visionary, and you also have to be a pessimistic realist. Okay, and usually if there's freelancers or solopreneurs and they struggle with payment issues on a very ongoing basis, it's usually because either they don't have a very in-depth contract. I always recommend to, of course, have and then work with a lawyer to really set those up properly, especially if you're having like maybe the first 3 bigger clients, so you have the cash flow. That's something that you want to invest in right away, because that's something you keep working on, right? As you keep working with those contracts as a contractor and freelancer. And so that's really important. So have sort of that legal system support, have someone that you know you could reach out to. Also for us, for instance, there are lawyers out there who support small businesses, who support online entrepreneurs. You can even hire them on retainer. You can pay them $390 a month or francs a month, and you're on retainer. So whenever like stuff hits the fan, to put it like nicely, then you can reach out to them and they're gonna help you, and you don't have to deal with it. because oftentimes if you want to remove yourself a little bit from that energy, because you can really often sometimes like get into a spiral and think, oh, did I not do a good job? Maybe, you know, was it not worth it? All this kind of stuff, which is bullcrap most of the time. So it's good to have a middle person deal with this so you can keep working on your business, remove yourself from that, know it's taken care of, and then just continue doing your cool thing and keep growing, right? Yeah, so non-paying customers is literally a reality. It doesn't matter where you are in the world. It's gonna most likely happen to you. Notice, don't be surprised by it if it hasn't yet. It's totally a common thing. It's a normal thing for every business, regarding of what stage in business you're in. The important thing is just to know how to limit the damage. Also, when you do work, a final tip that I want to give you is one thing, especially when you're working online, a really great tip is that you always sort of have a folder and you screenshot the progress. You screenshot the work that you or your contractors are doing. You are making sure to really just document and have everything together and be sure that you can document what you did for them, how you've been working, dates and stuff like that. Because let's say if there's also a client, and that might happen to you as well, it happened to everyone that I know, myself included, if there's clients that are asking for refunds, not just refunds, but that are maybe not even communicating anymore because they might have money struggles, and then they are going to go ahead and they are trying to get chargebacks from their credit companies if they paid you with a credit card company, with a credit card. That's a very unfortunate situation sometimes, right? Because you look into your account and all of a sudden you see, oh, 1,500 francs or dollars or euros have been like taken out of your accounts, and you didn't expect it at all just because that person asked for a chargeback because they said the work wasn't delivered, for instance. So that's why though, with, for instance, Stripe or PayPal or those payment merchant processes, and processing companies, it's a really cool idea because they're going to ask you for proof then, and their bank as well from that client, right, that followed through with that. And if you can prove what you have been doing and, you know, the work you have been doing, almost always, I will say 99% of the cases where this happened over the last eight years, and also from my friends, honestly, we've gotten the money back. The thing that you need to know is it might take a few weeks or months sometimes for that to happen. So that's something you have to be prepared for, but just, yeah, know that you get it back. So this was my little spiel for today. I hope this helps you as well, and I'll see you in the next video. Ciao.